Hi. So I just had a terrible idea, which is like how most of my ideas start. So I am a huge fan of like DIY trinkets and like props and stuff. Let me show you. This entire shelf is mainly stuff that I made. There are children at my house. Like, I really like paper mache. And I had the terrible idea to make paper mache ram horns. Say hello, you nasty.
What you're watching right now is my thought process being put onto paper. This part was definitely not necessary, but I did it to give myself peace of mind. Right here, I was just cutting out some pieces of paper so I can get an idea of what it was going to look like when I started building it out of cardboard. It's a quote-unquote model, and if you see me standing up and down, I'm looking in the mirror to see how it looks on my head. And as I was going along, I started building it just to see if my idea would actually work the way I wanted it to, and it does work the way I want to, so props to me, you know? And then, for a really long time, I looked up pictures of goat horns and pictures of people who made horns, just so I can get an idea of maybe what I wanted them to look like color-wise and where I wanted them positioned on my head. Also, by the way, I made goat horns, not ram horns, but I will make the ram horns in the future. You can see right here I started measuring out pieces of cardboard for me to cut. I was gonna initially make the width of each section 2 inches, but 2 inches was really thick. So then I moved down to 1 inch, but 1 inch ended up being way too skinny. So I did about 1.5 roughly. I think it was a little bit over 1.5, but what you can see here is me measuring them out. I did up to 7 inches, so I had 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, and 7 inches, and I think in between 4 and 5 I had like 4.5 and 5.5, just so that way I had some pieces that fit in really tightly and could curve more than the other pieces. I also wanted to let you know that I started at 3 inches instead of 1 because 1 inch was a little bit too tiny and I didn't realize that I would need a 2-inch piece until the very end. So I did end up making a 2-inch piece, but that's towards the end when I realized that I needed it to help make the tip of the horn. I also wanted to put it out there that I ended up not using one of the half pieces. It ended up being a little too tight to fit and I didn't need it anyway, so I just didn't use it. Can't remember if it was 4.5 or 5.5, but I know that I definitely did not use that piece. By the time I start making the second horn, I get a box cutter, thank God. But let me just tell you that my hands were on fire. If you have a box cutter, please use that instead of scissors because holy shit. Here I moved to where my hot glue gun had been plugged in and I just started curving all the pieces so that way I didn't have to bend them as I went. I could just have them all pre-curved and then just glue them shut together. I'm realizing now that these lines go this way, so I should have cut them long ways like this. And then I could have just bent them in on those lines. But you know, we'll do that next time. This is why this is a trial run, so. Here I just started gluing them together in a circle so that way I could stack them into one another, and you'll notice me using cardboard and my pen eventually to smooth out the hot glue over it. The first horn I made looks like absolute shit as far as the hot glue job goes, but the next one will look better because I figured out that instead of putting 90 pounds of hot glue on there, it only needed a thin line. So,
Okay, they are all glued in circles now. Now I'm gonna see how to configure them in the little like thingy thing. You know? That didn't make sense, but you'll see.
and here obviously I'm just building up the base of the horn. I took the 7-inch one to start and then put the 6-inch one inside the 7-inch one and turned it in a way so it started to curve, and then I just filled that bitch up with hot glue and prayed that it would just stay, and it did. And so you can already see it starting to curve as I add more. I'm trying to remember which halfway point, either 4.5 or 5.5 that I took out, but I really cannot remember or tell from this video which one I didn't use. You can kind of tell right here that what I tried to do was swirl a piece of cardboard to make the tip, but I ended up ripping that out. I went to the store and got some modeling clay that air dries. It's actually really nice, and I made a tip right there. I made the point of the horn. It honestly, the first one came out like shit. It kind of looks like a square that all of a sudden just goes into a circle, but on the second horn I figured it out and I fixed it so the first horn looks awful and the second horn looks great. Trial and error, people. We learn. Here I started painting the horn. I painted a little black line all around the bottom because I wanted to try and make it like a gradient effect, like it starts off really dark and ends up really light. It didn't really work out in the end, but you know, I also painted a black line down the center so that way I can blend some brown over the top and try to hide the hot glue. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. And then I ended up going back over the entire horn and painting it white just so that way the brown would come out a little bit darker as opposed to me just putting the brown straight on the cardboard. It didn't end up having too much of an effect in the end, but I'm still glad that I did it. Anyways, moving on.
Okay, the goat horns took me 2 days to complete. In total, it was probably around like a few hours, more than a few hours, because just building them took like 4 hours. I just woke up, so, you know? But, it did take me 2 days to make them. This is the finished product. They look wonky as hell, especially on the bottom. Let me explain what I did, because I didn't film this part. So I finished painting them, and then what I ended up doing was cutting out a small circle of cardboard so that way I could close the bottom, and then gluing that to the headband, and then taking an old t-shirt and cutting 2 little circles and gluing that under the bottom of the headband and onto the cardboard so that it would be sturdier. I don't know, it works in my head. But yeah, and then I just kind of hoped for the best. They're a little bit wonky. I think the one that's on, is this my left side of my head, looks better than the first one I made. Mainly because by the time I got to the left one, I was like, okay, this works and this doesn't work, you know?
Also, I completely messed up the tip on this one. The tip. That's besides the point. I'm gonna insert some pictures of me last night when I finished them. I was absolutely freaking out because, like, they're done. Please ignore how cringy these are. Please ignore how cringy these are, please. So this is just part one of me making wearable horns. Part two with the ram horns will be coming soon. I'm probably gonna start late tonight because I love doing that to myself, you know? Just exhaustion. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I hope you all have a good day. Very much love from me to you. Bye.